I have a message to share with y'all today. It's about when the word of the Lord comes. And I want to talk to you about Elijah. And you start at verse 1 of chapter 17 of 1 Kings. And it will go all the way through chapter 19, verse 16. Now we find in the very first verse of chapter 17 that God sent Elijah to tell Ahab and Jezebel that it wouldn't rain again until he said it would. And Elijah went straight there and told them exactly what God said, and there was no fear because he trusted God. He knew that God would take care of him. When he left there, Ahab and Jezebel was really, really mad, and so God said, "Go to the brook Chidron, and I'm going to feed you meat, and I'll have the ravens to bring meat to you every day, and then you can drink out of the brook." This happened every day, twice a day. The ravens brought him meat to eat, and he drank out of the brook until the brook dried up. In verse 7, the brook dried up. Now think about that a minute. How many of us would still be sitting there waiting for the instructions from the Lord when the brook dried up? I think I would be saying at least by the time it was down to a little mud puddle, I would be saying, "Lord, have you forgotten that you sent me here? What am I going to drink now? What am I going to do? Where do I need to go? Let me go find somewhere else that has water that I can drink, because I'm going to need a drink. I'm going to get dehydrated, God, and you must have forgot me, so I need to go find another brook or something I can drink from." But not Elijah, because he trusted God. He was there when the brook dried up until the word of the Lord came. And when the word of the Lord came, he told him to go to a certain place and that he would have a widow there that would take care of him. So when the word of the Lord came, Elijah went exactly where he told him, and there was the widow, and he said, "I need something to eat and I need something to drink." And she said, "All I have is this little bit, and I was going to cook this, and me and my son were going to eat it and die, because we have no income." They have no income, and in that day, women didn't work. The only option she had was to be a prostitute. And that woman evidently was refusing to do that. Well, praise God for that, because God takes care of his people, and we have to trust him. But she was planning to die, to starve to death. And so he said, "Well, go ahead and go do what you said. Make the bread and bring me the first bread and let me eat, and bring me the drink, and then you and your son eat, and then your meal and your oil will not run out." She did exactly what he said, and he stayed there with them, and the meal didn't run out, and the oil didn't run out for days and days. They were fed, and they had something to drink, and Elijah stayed there. And then this woman who had one son, and that was important to her, of course. I mean, we all love our children, but in that day, a barren woman was considered to have some kind of sin in her life that kept her from, that God punished her for by keeping her from having a child. So this child was proof that she was not a sinful woman. And so it was really important to her. And so she went to the man of God, and she said, "What have you done? Have you come here and done this, and I've obeyed you, and I've done what you said to do, just to take my son from me, to let my son die?" And he took her son, and he went up to the loft, and he cried out to the Lord, and he cried out to the Lord, and he laid down upon the boy 3 times, and he cried out to the Lord as he did that, and he said, "Lord, have you brought this on these people that have helped me? Let this boy live. Let his soul come back into his body. Let him live." And the boy lived. Well, then the word of the Lord came again, and he said, "Go back and tell Ahab and Jezebel that it's going to rain again." Oh my. Jezebel was a harsh woman. Ahab was a mealy-mouthed man that obeyed everything Jezebel said. And so whenever he went to go tell Jezebel and Ahab that, he met their servant, and I can't remember his name now, but he met their servant, and he told him to go back and tell them that he wants to see them. He said, "What? Now, you know, I fear the Lord, and I've even taken 100 of the Lord's prophets, and I've hid them in caves, 50 in one cave, 50 in another cave, and I've fed them and I've watered them. I fear the Lord. But when I go back and tell Ahab and Jezebel that that you want to see them, and then you don't show up, they're going to kill me. But I fear the Lord, and I will do what you say, but they're going to kill me." He said, "No, go back and tell them, because I'm going to be there. I won't let you down." So he went back and he told them, and they he actually I'm trying to think of the words. He actually had I'm just going to say it like we would say it today. He had a throwdown with their false prophets. He said, you know, you go get your meat and make your offering, and then I'll make my offering. We'll see who can call fire down from their God, and we'll see who the real God is. And they went out and they fixed their offering, and they cried out to their God and cried out, and this went on for hours and hours. Elijah was like, "What is it? Is your God asleep, or is he just busy talking on the telephone, or what is it? He's not paying any attention to y'all. Maybe you need to wake him up, because evidently he's asleep." Well, they really got with it then. They started cutting themselves till blood was just running everywhere, and still no fire. Abraham went and he got his offering. He had it cut up so. He laid 12 stones down for the altar that represented the 12 tribes of Judah. He had wood piled there. He had them to soak that thing with water. Now, this is in the middle of a drought too. Water was precious. So he had them to water this down real heavy twice, soak that wood, and then he called upon God. And he said, "Show these people that you are the true God." And fire came down from heaven. Not only did it start the wood burning, but it devoured the offering that was on the altar. So, and at this time, Ahab had himself convinced, even though he was told that there was 100 prophets of God that was saved by hiding in a cave and being fed, but he had himself convinced that he was the only prophet of God left. So now he goes to Ahab and Jezebel, and he says, you know, it's going to rain again. And so Jezebel's really mad now. They've been through 3 years of harsh no rain, drought. 3 years of that. And they've suffered. So she's really mad. Now all of a sudden, Elijah runs. And he goes into a cave and he hides. And he says, and there came a great wind that was so big that it knocked rocks off of the mountain. And then there was an earthquake. And then there was fire, but God wasn't in the wind. He wasn't in the earthquake. He wasn't in the fire. But then the still small voice came, and Elijah, what are you doing here? That was God. He sometimes he is, we're looking for him in something big and awesome, but sometimes he is that still small voice. And so he said to Elijah, what are you doing here? Elijah said, Jezebel's mad at me and she's wanting to kill me. Let me focus us in on this right quick. All this time, he's been doing exactly what God said when the word of the Lord came. Now, all of a sudden, he's hiding in fear. Why? Because he was intimidated by the spirit of Jezebel. Take a moment and just think about that. He was intimidated by the spirit of Jezebel. Are we being intimidated today by the spirit of Jezebel or any other spirit that's not of God? Are we being intimidated? Are we being intimidated by the spirit of control that the powers that be in this nation wants to have over us? Are we being intimidated by what we see going on in these days that we live in? Are we being intimidated? We shouldn't be, because we have seen God do many mighty things. I know I have in my life, just in my personal life. I've seen him do many mighty things. I have no reason to fear, but I'm not perfect. I'm not telling you that I never have a moment of fear, or maybe even longer than a moment sometimes. I have to pray through. I have to remember who God is. I have to remind myself all the things that he's done in my life, like David did when he faced Goliath. He first had to remind himself. See, when he was telling them how he killed the lion and the bear, he wasn't telling them so to increase their faith. He was reminding himself of what God had done for and through him to increase his faith. And that's what we need to do. We need to remind ourselves every day of the things that God has done. That will increase our faith. Whether it helps anyone else or not, I know it helps me whenever I testify about the things that God has done in my life. Now, he's in this mountain, and here God comes in the still small voice. What are you doing here? Jezebel's out to kill me, so here I am. And he tells him, just go on and go find this guy named Elisha, and anoint him to take your place as my prophet. And of course, the story goes on from there, and it's a great message with Elijah and Elisha. And someday soon I'd like to share that, but right now I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to tell you that as long as we will listen and we move when the word of the Lord tells us to move, then we have no reason to fear. But when we get into fear, that is like faith in the devil. Fear is the opposite of faith in God. So what is it but faith in the devil? Faith in the things that he puts in our way, the things that he wants us to believe, the lies that he tells us that causes fear, which is the same as having faith in the devil, that he has power to do the things that he threatens to do. What are we going to have faith in? Faith, no fear. Faith, no fear. We walk by faith and not by sight. Let me share one little personal experience that brings it down to how it applies to us today. I'm terrible at driving in Little Rock. Little Rock, Arkansas. I get so lost. It's pitiful, and I can tell you stories about that that's just hilarious, but I don't have time. But I do get lost there. So my husband my late husband, he's passed away now, but he was in the hospital at Doctor's Hospital in Little Rock, Arkansas, and we lived in Traskwood, and I learned how to get to Doctor's Hospital and back to Traskwood. That was during the day. See, I didn't realize how different things look at night. So one night I decided I wanted to go see him, and I took off, and I'm really watching for every off-ramp, every exit that I come to. I'm watching, trying to find my exit, and all of a sudden I see it go by me. Ooh, and I panicked, and I would say, oh God, what am I going to do? Oh God, what am I going to do? Oh God, what am I going to do? And I kept saying that till my voice just kept getting higher. And if I heard that still small voice of God say, listen to me and I'll get you there, I calmed down and I said, okay God, I'm going to stay in this lane no matter where this lane takes me until you tell me to switch lanes or turn. I'm not moving from this lane. And I did exactly that. I looked down at the clock when I, when I was saying that to God, I looked at the clock, and God would say to, I don't even know what I did. How many times I switched lanes? I don't know. How many times I turned? I don't know what I did. I don't have any idea. I cannot remember how I got there. But he said, turn right, and I turned right and looked up, and there was Doctor's Hospital. I looked at my clock, and it had been 3 minutes since I passed my exit. 3 minutes he had me where I needed to be. In 3 minutes time, because I listened to him. I didn't move unless he told me to move. I didn't turn unless he told me to turn. I just did exactly what he said. Well, how did he talk to you audibly, Angela? No, he talked to me in my spirit. When I hear his voice, I know it's his voice. I feel him. I know him. And when I hear it in my spirit, I know that's his voice. And so he got me there in 3 minutes, and I have no clue to this day how I got there except by obedience to every small word that he said to my spirit. And that's the way we're going to get to where he wants us in anything in our lives, is by obeying his voice, obeying his word. The Bible, first of all, that is the standard that has been set. But as he speaks to us every day and we obey, it is obedience, then victory. Never victory, then obedience. So don't tell God, if you'll do this, give me victory over this, then I'll obey you. It don't work that way. Obedience, then victory. When the word of the Lord comes, obey. And then you'll get the victory. God bless you.